Welcome to the Struggle Bubble. I'm Chad Cutting.
And I'm Craig Sergi. How are we?
We're doing great, Craig. I've missed you. We haven't done anything in person or one-on-one. We've had all these incredible guests, and now it's just me and you.
We're back. But
Still in your garage.
Week. Still in the garage. It's been a busy week. Lots going on. Lots of we had dance auditions last week, which were fantastic. I give a little plug out.
How'd you do? What'd you audition for?
I went for tap and ballet. It was great. I believe it was 44 kids auditioning for the studio. So that puts me in a rather large pickle on the size of the studio. That's heads down and moving forwards. So that was great for the jungle. And then soccer tryouts just finished, right, for you guys. Baseball season's over now, I believe, or close to.
It is not over. It's far from over, Craig. Last night we had a thriller win the baseball elimination bracket semifinals. No, elimination bracket finals. So Theo's team got to play last night.
Hold on. Wait. Freeze. Elimination final. Isn't a final.
We don't say losers bracket anymore.
No, okay. Got it.
You don't want to call it the losers bracket. It's the elimination bracket.
Second place is the first loser, right?
That's Ricky Bobby. Let's go.
Ricky Bobby.
So we've been playing, it's kind of a condensed schedule this year. So double elimination, but we've had a game on Saturday, game on Sunday, game on Tuesday, game on Thursday. So we've been in the thick of it. So keeping all of our pitching fresh, keeping our options open, had a bit of a thriller where we went into extra innings last night. Theo had a nice little play, backhand stomps on third, and we get to go to the championship next Wednesday. But as you know, with double elimination, we have to beat the champ twice. So it'll be fun next week on, I think, next Wednesday and Friday, if necessary.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. By the way, I want to come back here to baseball because I read a really cool article about who's the dudes in the yellow bananas?
The Savannah Bananas.
Yeah, I read a really cool article about how intense baseball is and how changing the league format to be more intense was completely opposite to what they did. They lost they believe the fun and the enjoyment and all of that was taken out of the sport. And that's how they started that, which was really interesting to read.
Well, baseball is an interesting sport because there is, the long time tradition, right? Hundreds of years going back to the 1800s of playing baseball. So you have some baseball truists that just want to keep it the simple game as it's always been. And I think as you have the other elements of, really it's entertainment. And if a young kid, 5 or 6 years old, goes to a game, and up till they made the rule changes, those games go 3.5 hours with not a lot of action. When the action happens, it's a lot of fun, home runs, great plays. But when you're waiting a minute in between pitches and things are dragging on, it's not very entertaining.
By the way, people give me a lot of crap about cricket being and we have multiples. We've said this before, right? There's the 2020s, which is 20 overs. There's 3 day, there's 5 day, there's 1 day, whatever, right? Now, people give me shit about the 5 days, and I love the 5 days. When it's international, like when England are playing in the Caribbean and they're playing the Windies or whatever, right? It's awesome to watch. Again, people give me a lot of crap about it being 5 days. I'm like, hold on. When the Giants go and play somewhere on the East, how many games is that?
3 or 4.
Right? It's exactly
against the team, 3 or 4. Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Different.
No, it's not. We calculate the 5 days into a single score. So win or lose. We just don't play 4 different games over 4 days. It's exactly the same.
What if you play really, really well on the first day and really, really poorly on the second day?
You potentially
right? Don't you want to? So it's that's just an average. We don't do that here in America.
That's right. America, you get
we need a winner and a loser.
Up.
And that's how we're going to do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do that. At the end of the day, you're calculating season scores and standings and whether it's 1 day, one
exactly.
inning, right? You can always.
Yeah.
I think it's more with the Savannah Banana point, the entertainment factor of they are trying to condense it down. There's a time limit against it. You know how long it's going to be. Bring the family out there, enjoy it. They're entertaining. Some of it more entertaining than others. Some of it a little bit cheesy. But those guys are playing at a decent level. They weren't able to make it pro, but still playing at a pretty high level. Last night, I saw home runs in Yankee Stadium, which was pretty awesome to see this amateur set of guys going out there and performing.
That must be incredible.
It's hard to get a ticket.
Well.
What I really love, though, is the way that they're, trying to protect the cost and making sure that any reseller that goes in and tries to jack up the price has tickets revoked.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're putting their money where their mouth is, and I think if you listen to the last 4 or 5 episodes from the struggle bubble, we're trying to get into doing things for the right reason on the coaching side, on the playing side, on the business side, and they're definitely. I mean, say what you will about traditional baseball. Otherwise, they're in a service industry. They're entertainers, and they want you to leave a satisfied customer. And I think by the way that they're selling out all of these stadiums and the long wait list to get in, they're doing something right.
Oh, I think it's incredible. I mean, just a guy throwing a ball that's on fire, you kind of captured me.
You seem to be more the kind of guy that really wants to root for the guy that's batting and running on stilts.
For sure. Oh, yeah. I definitely want to see him fall over. Absolutely.
Well, there's a little bit of element, I think. I mean, and I mean this in the right way, in the best way, a bit of a circus element to it. Right? There's
For sure.
sideshows, there's different things that aren't baseball related at all, but you have the entire spectrum. We've gone to San Jose Giants games where they have promotions going on and fan participation in between innings, and they try and keep it lively, kid zones, because they realize sitting through an entire baseball game is not for everybody. And if you want to appeal to the masses and bring people out and get your concession stand sales up, you're going to need to pull a little bit of a rabbit out of a hat.
I was just about to say that as well. The San Jose Giants is such a good night for the value and the kids running around. Everybody's there for the same right reason, to see a game, enjoy the environment, go get some good barbecue. The kids have a fun time. Everyone goes home tired, pass out, and it's the best. It's absolutely the best. Best value for money. And when I'm paying $100 just to park to go and watch the Giants, the San Francisco Giants, not the San Jose, dude, come on. I mean, we're now we're leading to corporate purchases over mom and pops, or a certain high yield you have to earn a certain amount to go to this game, and it just kills me. Somebody called me the other day about the World Cup, and I was looking at the price of tickets, and I'm like, this is obscene. Now you can go and see Saudi Arabia versus whoever at Levi's, right, for $100 or whatever, which is great price for a World Cup game. But you want to go see the premium teams, the Brazils, the England Baseball Premier team, France.
That's definitely a tier 2 team.
Tier 2. France, etc. You're talking thousands of dollars for that game. It just is, you're back to
the way that
land.
it's, I mean, along with all of this, so the point we've been trying to make, and I want to bring up one of the bills that was introduced in Congress over the last couple of weeks to get private equity out of youth sports. But you have, at the end of the day, it's capitalism. You're going to make as much money as possible. And there are sponsors that are paying top dollar to be a part of the event, and the ticket prices are high. When you look at soccer in the United States, it is not the most popular sport. It is not bringing in the most money. The more that you keep the fans away, the harder it is to build that up and that groundswell. And I think from top to bottom, having the game be accessible. And MLS does a pretty decent job to get people out there and keep ticket prices accessible.
Yeah.
Right. The concession stand, all of that. You don't have to buy a beer at the game. You don't have to buy the hot dog. So, complain that you will or won't.
Well,
the problem is when
choice, right? Yeah.
But it ultimately does affect the bottom line of, if they don't sell enough hot dogs or t-shirts, that the ticket price has to go up to help pay for it. And then you have, you don't have as big TV deals as football or baseball or basketball do in the US. So it's all part of the same diagram. But when I look at the valuations of some of these clubs, when somebody, has to break in for multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, in the NFL, billions of dollars, it's absolutely crazy, because some of it is status and ego, right? I own a professional sports franchise. I have access. It's not really a money-making venture, but you also don't want to lose money on it. So these big market teams that are able to get higher contract or issue higher contracts because they have the rights deals and the money from the advertising and TV and radio, it makes it tough all the way around. You need to work it out somehow.
Yeah, I think we've chatted about this before. Back in the day in England, you used to be able to buy a soccer club for £1, right? It's kind of like the Wrexham story. They're so in debt that you have to be, a pretty successful, consortium or person or whoever to go in and buy, and they just sell at a discounted rate, right? You buy their debt, and then you pay that off or develop it or whatever. Now they're flipping that into, it's just private equity platform, right? The other day, you're trying to raise the cost as much, the valuation as much as possible, and then sell it on for kind of a private equity play or a tax hideaway.
Well,
Changes the landscape heavily.
speaking on private equity, let's talk about this for a minute. A few weeks ago, the Let Kids Play Act was presented in the House and Senate. And it basically speaks to forcing private equity to divest from youth sports. That's leagues, facilities, tournaments, tech platforms, to give back any junk fees that are associated with driving the cost up, and to hold the private equity investors personally liable. And the number that they hit on, they're saying youth sports costs are up 46% since 2019. And I think everybody who has listened to this podcast, has followed along, identifies with the rising costs. Curious to get your thoughts. You've seen how PE works in the software business, and now seeing it across youth sports. We had an episode a month ago talking about how bad private equity could be for youth sports. What's your take on having congressional acts get involved and try and push PEs, or at least penalize PEs for being involved in youth sports?
I think it's a little bit of a difficult one, to be honest with you, because I think some are doing it still for the right reason, and I think some are still trying to lean into. I know, just give an example because it's heavy right now, with women's sports professional teams, right? I think some are leaning in on, again, right and wrong reasons. Some are jumping on the bandwagon because I think that's going to be the next thing for the multi-billion-dollar sellout, whatever. But I think some people are doing it again for the right reason and building these consortiums or syndicates to go in and purchase because it is the right thing to do. Right? It's been an industry that's been overlooked, I think, for a long period of time.
Right, but that's two different things, though, right? That's bringing attention and bringing investors in together to elevate the game and professional sports franchises. What this is more aiming to do is on the younger side of, you have these tournaments that are stay to play. You have to book the hotel. You have to get the block of rooms that are associated with the tournament. And I think I have questions on how this would be enforced and whether it truly lowers the cost, right? You drive the PE out or make it less attractive to bring all of these investments together for the sole purpose of making money. You still have to get the tournaments and the apparatus and the parents to believe in what is and isn't needed to be successful in youth sports.
Yeah. So I think there's, again, a couple of things. I think prior to this kind of getting some kind of sanction around it, and it's not really a sanction, but it used to be, I just kind of call it, money in envelope situation, right? Which is also a bit of a nightmare for parents and clubs and coaches and all that kind of stuff. Now, the sanctioned tournaments mixed with the stay and play side of the house, I think there's benefits to it and there's negatives to it, right? The benefits to it is it's organized, it's structured, etc. But there's a cost, right? That is just set in stone, and there's no two ways around that. So again, you're migrating away people that can't afford it. And then on the other side of it is, dude, it's such big money. As we know, youth sports now is a $40 billion industry.
And
right?
growing.
And growing, right? You would be blind to think that, big PE companies haven't been watching this for a long, long time and figuring out a way to get in there. The one thing I'd say different between tech and that, the world that you and I live in, I don't see many people getting headcount chopped. Right, I don't see the PEs worked a little bit of a different angle, right? It's increasing price to the consumer. So the angle of it is consumer based. So if you don't want to, at the end of the day, you don't want to do a stay and play. You don't have to. You can opt out, right?
Well,
so there is that
the biggest
angle
part that
to
we've
it.
talked about is at what point we talk about ROI all the time. And for the clubs, for the families, for the athlete, for the private equity, the ROI makes sense. Hey, this is a built-in and growing industry. And, Lenny hit it on it last week. If it's not one club, it'll be the other. And if it's not this athlete, it'll be somebody else, right? The money is going to be there regardless, but squeezing it out and trying to drive the costs up instead of capitalize on the pockets, that's where we have the incentives that are inversed.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, I think it's just such a difficult one because I still have a gut feeling that a lot of people that we know in private equity in the sports world, they still generally have a kid in the sport, right? The ones, and I'm just saying from our small group, right? And they're trying to do it to take me, for example, right? We built the studio, right? That was not funded, right? That was privately built because our kids are in the sport and we didn't feel where we were at we were getting the value we deserved, or, the kids, need a healthier environment. So you go and build something else, right? Now, we're not in there gouging people, but it's just exactly the same. If we don't charge the same as somebody else, people feel they've got a less of an environment. They feel they're getting less of a product, which isn't true. Just we're giving discounts at a high level, whatever the scenario is. So I think that goes all the way up now into these, these franchisee clubs. Now, that is the one thing I would take a little bit of a backseat on, is the franchisee clubs is interesting because, as you and I both know, with something that was going to come out in the media over the next week or so with you and I and a local club, just as a little teaser, we see these youth clubs with a great thought process around where they want to get to, but don't have the skill sets potentially to get where they eventually want to get to. And so they go down the road of trying to find a franchisee that has a structure based in place, right? How to run a board, how to do payroll, how to, whatever. Now, that one to me is a little bit of the gray area because, again, the original club has the right intentions. They now realize, or the board realizes, that they need help to keep the growth for the sport and how many kids they have and all those things. So they go and get this next franchisee. Now, is that franchisee giving the right things out to make them successful, or are they just taking the finances to keep growing their individual club?
But that goes to motivation. So I agree with you. And I think being very clear on the separate, there is investment to take a club that is doing things the right way. And the right way, meaning it's the athlete first and the dollars second. We are developing, we're teaching a skill, we're giving an opportunity for memories. Because there are tournaments, you've talked about this. We go down to San Diego. If your intention to go down to San Diego is to have a fun time with your family and friends, and also there is soccer, that is the right way to approach it. If you're going down to San Diego to say, we're going to go win this tournament, if we don't win the tournament, this is a terrible trip, it's different. There is an investment level to make those clubs that are doing things the right way that makes sense. And we provide it, and there should be government, level funding for that. Clubs and C3s rewarded for giving back to the community. Percentage of population served, percentage of retention, not the money that it takes to get there. Now, there are operational costs, and I'm fully aware of those. We have operated clubs, and we understand that at very worst, you need to break even. You can't go into debt. You need to break even and provide a quality service. You don't need, use the Little League as an example, right? You don't need an extra $100, $200, $300,000 sitting in the bank account. Could we charge more instead of going from, $400 for 12 weeks to $700 to $1,000? We absolutely could, and people would pay for it, but you don't need to do that. And I think, to your point, the private equity is about a return. And that return is financial. The return isn't development.
Well, and I also worry about these 501c3s as well, after being involved so many years, and same with you. There's some, I don't want to call it BS. I believe it's BS, but
I'm proud of you for not saying the actual word.
Yeah. The part I'm getting to on this is the cities need to be a bit more flexible with the local clubs. And what I mean by that is, why are we, and I'm just going to use our town, for example, right? We're building multiple, family housing, affordable housing bill and all that stuff. I totally get it, right? But we need more parks. If you're going to bring more people into this town and build 250, townhouse and condos for more people to come in and more kids, etc., where are they going to go? There's no more fields, no more green space for them to play. And the BS I'm talking about is the 501cs to hold millions of dollars in cash that you and I, we've been in that for when we need to go and buy another field. When we personally have to go and fix fields, when we personally have to go and, hey, let's turf this rather than keep it grass because it dies in the winter, whatever, right? I'm not pointing fingers at like the groundskeepers and those kind of people, because it isn't them, right? They're a union and they get brought in and they do what they're told. But that's where I get super frustrated. Like, hold on, if a city's passing all of this for housing or whatever it's passing for, there's not enough green space for these kids to play. So the 501cs are forced to hold cash to then go and buy more properties to install those facilities for the kids to play. That's the BS that drives me a little bit crazy. And then that leads into, why not take PE? Right? Why not? If a PE is going to give me $5 million to go build a field and they want a return and we run a tournament for the next 25 years,
But that's where the model is completely broken.
it's broken.
The
100%.
government is built to do a service to respond back to the customers. And we're in a unique area where there's population density and a lot of people here in California that are moving in. And I think prioritizing housing is a priority in the right spaces, in the right size towns with the right infrastructure, a whole separate issue that we can get down, specific to our town. But the investment into green space is a problem across the country. You're seeing more of these private equity firms come in and build the facility, not for the public good, but for the private benefit of earning more money. And again, people are willing to pay it. Why not go do it? But don't come complaining when it's $25,000 to go, play in your hockey or your baseball tournaments.
Yeah.
And I think you just almost need a full flow chart diagram of where, if the incentives were to switch in any one of these buckets, if the parents ultimately said, I'm not willing to pay this, this is crazy, let's go play rec, baseball, soccer, football, basketball, and that's going to be good enough. And the stars are going to shine, the cream will rise to the top, everything that we've saying, and it'll be just fun. You're playing with your friends from school and your community, and that's going to be okay. But it's like the steroids era in baseball. If I'm looking at my buddy and my buddy says, well, actually, I don't want to play with this group because you guys aren't good enough. I got to go play with the elite talent. Well, I'm elite. I don't want to stay here. It's almost a public school versus private school problem. Well, I don't feel I'm going to get a good enough education if I go public, so I'm going to go private. And you start to peel off all of the people that can afford to go private, and you have the
elitism in youth sports now is a real problem. It's a real breaking point, in my opinion. And unfortunately, it's just a shift. I don't know if it's ever going to change back, is my gut feeling to it all. Right. I sent that link out to you yesterday and a few others on a text thread about dance. Somebody started something called the IDL, International Dance League. And it's like, teams from America's Got Talent, for example, or Dancing with the Stars, or, whatever it is. And that's an international dance league. There's a tournament in LA, and there's one in Canada, Australia, and somewhere else. And they're like, is it a new $1 billion industry? Like, I have no idea.
We've talked about it's great to see, in some respects, great to see a number that's growing because there's more participation. People are outside or inside, they're active. It's just the ROI on it of, if you believe that you need to pay to get to the next level, that's where it starts to break down, because there aren't great numbers indicating that that is the correct pattern. Or if you were to take that away, that anything would be different. Meaning, do I have to go to IMG Academy to grow my career, or could I have played for my high school? I would have been recognized for talent, developed into the college player, because the percentages down that funnel are very, very, very small.
Well, and I think we're going to see, NIL, right? Just going back to that, we chatted about a few weeks ago. That is really changed a lot
Craig,
of things,
one of the numbers
right?
that I, in preparation for this episode, that I didn't know, there are only 7 states in the US that prohibit NIL at the high school level. Meaning there are 43 states that it is okay to have NIL at the high school level. Now, it looks like there are some caveats that are completely different from college. College, you are tied to your university, to the school. For high school, it is tied to you individually. So you can't use the high school in any branding. You can't use your jersey, but you can use you as an athlete. The interesting part is, does that you go then to a different school because that's what the money giver, the benefactor, gives to you and says, hey, actually, why don't you come to this private school, or why don't you come to this public school?
Let me understand that right. That means that a school could offer your kid.
The school can't offer it.
So where does the finance come from?
It could come from a sponsor in the city. It could come from an agent.
It
could come from a private donor.
Yeah. Okay. So you have, let's just, fiction a little bit. Tom Brady says he's going to sponsor a QB. Where did he go to school up here? San Mateo somewhere?
Yeah, it's Sarah.
Yeah. Right. In theory, he could pay for that. A kid from another state or whatever, go to his, his old high school, pay for that QB, and that kid could play 4 years there.
It
So then in
looks to
theory,
be that
what
way. I'm
would
sure there
stop?
are state by state variations of what this can be used for, and there should be
Yeah.
some validity and checks. And then, I mean, talking about ROI, is it worthwhile to have a kid go to your high school? But it's because we're starting to ask all these questions now, these predatory practices could start happening. And then it's up to
Wow.
the school to make sure you're validating the contracts that are being written. I mean, so then you have another layer of corruption that could potentially happen where administrators are just like, yeah, this is great for us as a school. I'm going to rubber stamp this. I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't care. We just have money flowing through the wrong way. And on the high school level, it makes no sense to me. At the college level, where there's multiples of millions coming through, and you as an athlete in previous world, we're not able to see any of that money. You don't go pro, you get hurt, you don't collect any of that. Meanwhile, everybody else is making out perfectly. At the high school level, I don't understand why this would be
I mean,
allowed.
in theory, right, high school is when you really start football. I mean, I guess it's at any age or any sport, sorry, but man, that gets it even more interesting, especially in like the soccer world, for example. Not that I think people would pay a lot of NIL money for soccer players in high school, but it could definitely corrupt the system. Because then, in theory, you would, if I'm getting paid to play in high school by a private donor that's potentially got then, potentially own a club or potentially, you know, put money into a college, why would I play club?
Yeah, it introduces a ton of complexities that I don't know how it
I
plays
had no
out. It
idea.
just seems like we need to continue to bang the drum of making sure that you are following organizations, coaches, administrations that are doing things the right way for the benefit of your athlete and the broader community of athletes, because
Yeah,
that's where
that's
the
interesting.
FOMO and the keeping up with the Joneses and everything kind of falls behind. So let's just switch gears a little bit on that topic of keeping up with the Joneses and running the clubs. We're at an interesting point with the soccer calendar. We have tryouts that have happened. We have clubs that we've already talked about that want to pursue ECNL or MLS Next or all these other
Yeah,
alphabet
yeah.
soup acronyms.
Acronyms. Yeah.
What's happening behind the scenes as you're having those tryouts? You're trying to keep your current team happy and coming back, but you don't know if they're coming back. Clubs are trying to incentivize people with discounts or early birds and all this stuff, but won't tell you who your coach is or who your team is. Give us a sense of what's happening behind the scenes right now across the club.
Yeah, chaos a little bit. There is unfortunately a kind of undercurrent, is what I would call it, that you finish tryouts and presumably, kids are trying out multiple clubs. There's an undercurrent to try and get you signed into that club as early as possible, right? So get you committed to a team, and then obviously the coach and club can then build out that team. So for example, you have a 7v7 team, maybe you're in a roster of 9 or 10 players, you try and fill that roster with the 10 players that you want, and then obviously number 11, 12 and 13 would be the top players on team 2, for example. But if somebody doesn't fill slot 10, 9 and 8, you pull those kids into that bracket. It's a lot of constant movement right now, constant phone calls, trying to get people to sign up and commit to your club and commit to your team, so you then can start mapping out what the fall is going to look like. And obviously we've had a change again. I think this happened maybe 10 years ago, where we went from you played in your school year, I think it's August 31st cutoff date, to your calendar year, January 1 to December 31st. And now they've gone back again to school year. So we've also had a mix and match of, if you were born September 1, you now go to the other age group bracket rather than stay in your year birth. So that's changed a few things as well. But that's what we're seeing. And, the reality of it all is, you don't really need to commit this early unless you want to. You know your team, your coach, you like everybody, you're returning, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter if tryouts are kind of irrelevant because you want to stay with that team and club. But if you're looking to move around and you've got a couple of offers, it's kind of like interviewing for a job, right? Maybe you got a couple of offers, you look them over and you decide which one suits you best. It's the same process, right? And you don't really need to decide until the actual cutoff date, but it's in August sometime. So, but it's FOMO, right? It's if I don't commit to this club and this team and this, potentially this platform or league format, then I'm going to miss out. So I need to commit now. So I'm on my friend's team and all that stuff. But in all reality, we're still in May. right? You've got months to really make that decision if you need to.
I mean, just talk about incentives here, right? You want to keep your team together, but the clubs really don't care about the town you're coming from. They care about the talent. So, if someone's from your current team lives in the town and then somebody comes from, 25 miles away that is equal or moderately better, you're taking them on and potentially telling someone like, hey, yeah, there's a good chance that you're on team one, but then you have five boys come over from a different club and they're better. And then you come back and tell them, well, actually, it's your team too. You talked about this with Andrew when we had him on, both Andrews, Ferguson and Robbie, a couple weeks ago. What is your approach to being transparent to your current team and to those that are trying out about the opportunities available?
Yeah, I mean, for me, they've always been the same, right? I personally think you should go and try out at multiple clubs. Even though you have alliance to myself or to the club that I work for, I believe it's a great idea to go and be seen by multiple people. And I always advise that from 8 years old onwards, right? At the end of the day, if you're going to go and play at the highest level, right? Or it doesn't have to be the highest level. If your goal is to go and play at college or ECNL, say, or wherever, you are going to be looked at by multiple coaches all the way through your career. So get used, I always talk about it, right? Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Get used to being in a different environment where the coach speaks different, they train different, they want to see different things, their philosophy. And I always give people the advice, ask them what their coaching philosophy is. Ask them what their game day philosophy is. Ask them, where they played and the formation. You don't have to go super deep, but just like what they see. Because some coaches are possession based, for example, pass, move, pass, move, pass, move. Some coaches are, single development, individual player development, right? I want to see you take on a player 1v1 and then whatever, right? So it's really important to find out what the philosophy of the coach and the club is. Find out what their playing style is, find out what their game time style is, right? 50-50, or if you don't train, if you miss a training day with no excuse, you start on the bench, whatever it is. So get used to that. So again, going back to tryouts for the kids, they need to get used to being around different people. And then for me, it's very simple. Like, hey, this is the team. This is the team for this season. What I personally do is I try and roster small. So if I do a 7v7, which was my last age group, I'll only have 9 players, potentially 10. The reason I say 10 is I try at this younger age. Everybody goes in goal, but generally a couple of kids specifically want to do goalkeeping. So I always try and do 50-50 with them in goal and then X amount of time on the field as well. So I go to 9 players or 10 and you're set for the season. And then I'll try and bring a team 2 players up into that team when there's open possibilities for them to play, right? Somebody's sick, there's a slot open up. Somebody's on vacation, there's a slot opened up. All those kind of things. And I'm just very transparent with that from day one, right? I'll only look at new players entering that squad at tryout windows. Or, don't get me wrong, if there's a kid moved into town or something like that and they've got no club, then obviously we'll take a look at those players as well. An unforeseen circumstance. The one thing that does irritate me a lot is, and I say this politically the right way, if a kid is leaving a club and they're coming to try out mid-season, reality is, and I hope parents listen to this, I probably know that coach that you're coming from in the club. So just be aware that I'm going to call that coach and find out why you're looking to leave and join this other club, right? That one kind of, I definitely double click hard on why you'd be trying out mid-season if you're already a part of another organization. So that's my, so
Do these clubs know who the coaches will be next year? Or are the coaches also evaluating potential moves during this window?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both sometimes. Sometimes coaches do want to move on. And not just move on to a new org, but also internally as well, right? A lot of coaches flip potentially from boys to girls programs and vice versa. But then also some clubs have rotation policies. You spend 2 years with a team and then you rotate through and go to another age group or a different team. And then, for personal benefits, right? If I'm I'm a former director of coaching, right? But I couldn't get there at a club, so I went to another club. So if there's a different, just like any other job opportunity, right? If there's a promotional position available, then I'm potentially going to interview for that.
It seems like it's a juggling act. And I know there's probably not a right way to do it. And then if you're too transparent, people may leave as a result of that. If you're not transparent enough, you could tell somebody something today that's not true tomorrow. And we've had many cases of that across the seasons where your coach is going to be X or you're going to be on this team. And I mean, even during your transition, I'm sure there's some conversations of, hey, this is how I did things, but the next person that comes in might do it differently and might have a different team. I think that's where the parents need to understand they're paying for a service. They need to have some reasonable, not guarantee, but a
Well, I
direction
go
on
back
what
to I
it's
go
going to be
back to
happening.
questions, right? But you go and ask the educated questions as much as you can, right? You may be not educated in the sport, but go and ask as many as you can, and then make a decision from that point. But it goes back to the core, right? Is your kid happy on that team with that coach, or those kind of things? And then just be smart, right? We live in a very highly educated area. Hey, burn me once, right? But you're not going to burn me twice, right? So if you're saying one thing and doing something else, then you're going to irritate me and you better give me an answer or reasoning why. And that does get mixed up a lot of the times, right? I've been in the situation, again, done this for a long time now. So my opening parent meetings are a little bit different to a new coach. But sometimes maybe I'm sitting your kid because they feel unwell, right? Or they've got a little injury. Something's going on with them. And you could be pissed off that why did my kid sit the whole second half, right? But I'm the first one to come up to you and say, hey, Billy wasn't feeling great. He said his stomach hurt him. Maybe he pounded too much Gatorade at halftime, whatever, right? So I asked him if he wanted to go on. He doesn't feel well. Hey, so I just sat him just so you know, it's nothing else. So there's that part of it as well that I think, again, it's a service industry. I've got to give you an answer why this happened. It was out of my control and this is the reasoning why. And then there's
What
a
if
lot
that
of
what if
those.
that reasoning coming back to you says, we had to win the game. This is a game that we had to win. That's why your kid sat.
Dude, okay, if you're in the CCS finals, we can have a different conversation. If you're
But
8
this
and
gets
9
at a
years,
little bit of the core when you're evaluating these other clubs. All of this wraps around the expectations of what the parent wants, what's best for the kid, what the club's optimizing for, and what the coach is doing. So I understand there's a lot of push and pull with the variables, but there are some conversations where the parent will stay at a club because the club is winning, the team is winning, and they're a part of that winning, but they might not be playing. They might not be getting what they need to get out of. They're overlooked, or they're juggling between 1, 2, and 3 teams, but they're not with the FOMO angle. They're afraid of missing out. The advice that you've given is follow a coach. Go to a coach that you believe in, that is at a club that is close, that works for your family. You're not going to go 10 towns across. I guess maybe some families do. You shouldn't need to. But how do you factor in the winning of making that a good club versus finding the right club for your kid?
so I think first of all, philosophy, right? I think you need to ask that question of the club. Are they saying that they want to be a club that develops players, or are they saying that they're a club that is there to win national
But
championships?
they're all, I get that from a practice. It's good to ask, but everybody says they're in for development. It's the
For
number
sure.
one buzzword across, right? We're going to develop, we're focused on
So
the athlete first, but that's not, when push comes to shove, it's we're going to go win some tournaments. I'm going to go pull some guest players from a division up so that we can win this tournament, so we can put this trophy on our shelf. You got to go a layer deeper than just the lip service of what the club is saying.
So yes, first of all, be smart enough to read through that, right? The mud. Second of all, this is a difficult one, right? Classified development. When your kid turned up, they could only juggle once, and now they can juggle 15. So that's development, if that's what I'm going to call development, right? So the classification of development is something I would dig in heavily, right? Development to some people means we were in the silver bracket and now we're in the premier bracket. Well, that's development. We've grown. Well, hold on. I pause there and go, who's in the gold bracket when you won it? Because did all those teams that when you're in the silver bracket still be there, or did they move somewhere else? Right. So there's all those small little things that you really need to start dialing into. And then second of all is, again, going back to philosophies, club and coach. Development for me, right? I just talk about myself, is when I had my little girls team, the development to my promise to the parents was they're going to be able to juggle more than 10 times by the end of the season, right? By doing, little, you know, we give them little teasers, right? Juggle at night time, somebody, whatever, right? They could all play in every single position and understand the role, right? Very miniature for this age group. Can you stay as a left back? And when we attack forwards, right, know where your recovery run is. That's all. That's as simple as that, right? It means, okay, we're still going like this. Anyone that's looking at the camera, which side's left and which side's right. That's what you see on the field, right? Oh, I'm on the left. I got to remember I'm closest to the parent side or close to the coach side. You're going through their head. Doesn't matter if the ball went past them or not. They're trying to recover into that position. So something's triggered. Again, development. They now know left is this side and this is my role. They can use both feet. I always encourage shooting with both feet. I always encourage development with the ball, i.e., doesn't matter if you're a defender or not, go forwards and try and score. I'll figure out the rest behind you when you have the ball. You just do it. Then it leads to, and again, doing this a long time, winning leagues is absolutely irrelevant for me. Now, caveat, as you know, where we live, winning is developed into sales and marketing pitches.
Yeah. Everyone loves to win though as well. So there is an excitement level of, I think, being competitive and not losing every game. But I wanted to ask you about this. With the push for all these clubs that want to be ECNL, pre-ECNL, whatever, there's basically a qualification that ECNL puts out there of being top of table and having a number of teams top of table across. I've seen and actually been a part of some teams that have been pushed up to do that, right? A team that should be maybe in the silver bracket pushed up to gold because the top two need to be, platinum or whatever, the platinum and gold on top of it. Is there a disadvantage of the team being pushed up and getting the competition at a higher level and losing every game versus playing at your level and being maybe not against the best talent, but winning a couple games?
Well, I mean, I think you answered your own question, right? You play it to
I know
win.
it seems so simple though. It seems so simple, but on one hand, we argue that we have to be in ECNL, so we play against the top talent. But in the answer, it's play to your level.
No, I mean, so again, opinionated, right? Some people will push back hard on like, you should be challenged at every single session. Yeah, I don't disagree. But classified challenge, right? I know, and being athletes, I do not want to turn up in the fourth week of the season to get my ass handed 10-0 again. I'm not, at that point, I am not developing, right? I do not want to be there. I'm psychologically checked out before I even turn up. I may train great in the week, but knowing I'm going to get absolutely battered at the weekend, week in, week out, is for me detrimental to development, right? So there's a balance, right? Play in a league that is competitive, right? Very difficult to do. When the governing bodies let you roster in multiple teams, irrelevant of age group, you don't know who you're turning up to week in, week out to play those games. So system's broken, number one. It's very difficult for a club to say, stay in your age group, be the best team in that age group and compete when you then go and smack people 10-0 every week, but you followed the rules of staying in my age group, right? So that's difficult. Number two to that is trying to find the middle ground. Let me go and play tournaments that are very, very difficult because we're only going to get battered 3 times, right? But we're going to learn from that, smacking. Come back to our league format, we play at our consistency level and we develop and we style of play and all those things. And then we're going to play another hard tournament and see if we've done better by coming back and training and playing in our league and all those kind of things. But again, sales and marketing and all of, the laws of the game a little bit have broken. And that's why you'll see if anybody ever researches going into the European platform, you look at the youth leagues in Europe that are assigned to professional clubs. It's the City, for example, or Forest or Man U or whatever. Their top 12, 13, 14s play in a league, whichever one that is, and they could be playing Wrexham, for example. Like Wrexham's academy could be as good as Man U's academy, and they're playing the same league. Does not follow the first team at all. It's all individually set out. And I think that's where we're broken here, that we need to be in ECNL, so all those teams need to be allocated up and players moved around. Also, no, dude, like if you're a good team, you play in that ECNL platform. If your age group below isn't as strong, play where they belong. Don't force them into that league, but you're back to money again, right? You're back to, you need 5 teams. The franchise is $200,000 or whatever it is. And then that should attract all these players to your club so you can compete at that level. It's broken.
Check all the players to the club and then kick out every local kid that's playing for their community because they're not as good right now at 10 years old, 13 years old than somebody else. And then you develop those and then everybody else falls to the wayside. We've had so many stories come up over the past couple of weeks of kids just quitting again. We're having the conversation of, these on the elite side, but the kids that are paying for it is just down. I tried soccer. I was yelled at 15 times. I wasn't good because I haven't played before. I wasn't given a chance to be good, and there's no system for me. So I'm done. I'm going to go play a different sport.
Yep.
And it's not like
Welcome
we're
to
churning
why
out
America struggle.
World Cup
right?
after World Cup after World Cup. The current plan isn't working, but if there's money to be made, I think people are saying, who cares? I've made my thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. So what that we don't have a team? So it just goes back to motivations of if we're teaching love of the game, we're practicing what we preach, we need more models out there. And I think just going back to your talent, I think the way that NorCal does their state cup is pretty awesome because you have basically qualify in or out. No matter where you are, what division you're playing in, play a game up, play a game down, play a game at. You're seeded in, you play in that tournament. That's not how the regular season works. It's not how it feels like there's a way. I mean, relegation and promotion is an interesting one where everybody's everywhere. And then throughout the season, you play against that talent. You can go to the tournaments. But I think no matter what angle we go down, you get back to at some point, there's a motivation that's wrong.
Well, and look at high school, just on that point, right? At the end of the high school season, all coaches sit down and say, hey, the next 3 years, we're going to be really bad because all our seniors graduated. I need to be dropped down a league because I just can't compete over that next. Like if we went into that format of, hey, this club, here's all your teams that you've applied to the league. And maybe they do this, I don't know. But here's all the teams that you've applied to this league. This is what was last year. This is a projection for this year. Do you feel you are set in the correct bracket for your club? Because these players have all moved. These players haven't moved. Now, that's probably a large project to take on, but it would be beneficial, right? I guarantee the top teams in Los Gatos would go and play in San Francisco's league because that's the bracket that is showing for them. But you come back to, hey, I don't want to travel an hour and a half every weekend to play because we have a family. There's 5 of us and we can't all get there. Right. So it just comes back down to those macros of like, okay, is this right for your kid with your coach in your town? Yes or no?
The other humorous part about this, Craig, is more and more research coming out that the gains that the athlete makes individually that sets them apart is happening in the backyard. It's happening in bonus time where they're able to just go in the backyard and shoot hoops or pass against a wall or whatever it takes, because then it's the muscle memory, it's the coordination. And then the assembly on the field is the team coordination part of that. It's, I know where you're going to be, so I can pass it to you, a little bit of the build out. But the pure talent is the kid saying, I'm going to go outside and practice on my own.
So that's something that I'm super passionate about, as you know. I get super frustrated when the old school mentality of you miss training, so you're going to start on the bench. Dude, if you do it right, and you've heard me call out a couple of kids that I used to coach, but one of the kids I used to coach, within 1 year went from juggling a few times to over 150 plus because she loves the ball and loves the game so much. And her footwork is exceptional for her age because we encouraged the homework. Hey, next week, you got to juggle 10. Hey, next week, you got to do 10 on the right and 1 on the left, then 2 on the left, then 3, and start building that love of the game and that passion that if I've only got, the Peloton behind me tells us all the time, hey, 20 minutes on that bike is all you need a day to feel better. You spend 3 times that death scrolling on Instagram, right? Just use 20 minutes. Just death scroll for 40 minutes and use the other 20 to jump on the bike. It's the same with any of these sports. You build the passion, you build the love of it, you build the desire to keep doing it. Dude, the homework will take care of the rest of it.
Yep. Let's just find that motivation. So I think as we wrap up, we covered a lot of ground here. Some of it venting, some of it trying to just position there's no clean answer. If there was, we'd all be able to follow it. But to do what's right for you and your family and your kids, find out what's important, realize that winning doesn't really correlate to much at a young age. Actually, losing does, because there's a learning exercise associated with it. And put your kid in a position to be taught, learn life lessons, be with their friends, have fun, and that chasing trophies or tournaments or any other logo might not be in the best interest and is likely going to cost you money, time, energy, and happiness, versus just, staying local, understanding what matters most, and seeing what they gravitate towards in the backyard.
Well, and it comes into the real world, right? We talk about quiet quitting all the time. We're starting to see that now in youth sports, which is really sad.
Yeah. You go back to the kid and say, hey, do you want to play this year? Not really. I'm not really excited about it. Meanwhile, you as a parent have that natural reaction of, what are you talking about? I paid for this tournament. We bought this equipment. We did this thing. And then the kid's looking at you like, well, I didn't ask you to do any of that. I also have no understanding of what that actually means. You're saying because you spent money, I need to be happy? Teach a little bit of the opposite.
Dude, there's a whole podcast right there. Yeah.
Maybe for next week. But I think a good time to wrap up. We are taping this just before Memorial Day. So hopefully by the time anybody's listening to this, you're actively enjoying the Memorial weekend or have just come back from a relaxing weekend with the family. As always, continue to follow us on Instagram, The Struggle Bubble Pod. I'm Chad. That's Craig. We'll see everybody next time.
Adios.